All right, everybody, welcome back. Brian Reese, VA Claims Insider. Again, now we're in the specialized module here, VA Claims Insider Mastery. And this is a big one, PTSD and mental health claims. In my experience, helping thousands of veterans, I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, I'd say 8 or 9 out of 10 veterans we serve have some type of a mental health claim. All right, whether it's post-traumatic stress disorder or some other type of mental health claim like depression or anxiety. There's just a lot of issues I think that veterans deal with. Stress from the jobs, deployments, away from family, being in combat, things that happen with maybe it's military sexual assault or trauma, MST. There's lots of issues that we deal with as veterans. Okay, I myself am rated 70% for post-traumatic stress disorder due to combat in Afghanistan, Operation Enduring Freedom. So I'm very sensitive to this. I understand there's a myriad of issues that go along with living your life with one of these, one or more of these conditions. And so bottom line, though, is if you have this PTSD or other mental health conditions, I want you guys to have the rating and compensation you deserve. Okay, so let's step through this thing. So are you eligible? So you've got to have, number one, medical diagnosis of PTSD or some other type of mental health condition. Okay, and that diagnosis needs to be from a US board certified psychologist or a US board certified psychiatrist. Okay, so for example, if you've been out of the military for a while and you've never been seen by mental health, if you submit a claim for PTSD or other mental health condition, I can guarantee you it's going to come back denied. Okay, so you've got to have a mental health diagnosis, and it's got to be documented in a medical record that you're going to upload to eBenefits when you submit your claim. Okay, and the second thing, of course, is the nexus. Your PTSD or your mental health condition must have been caused or made worse by your active duty military service. Okay, so if you've seen combat, if you were in a car accident, if you were a victim of sexual assault or trauma, you need to make sure that that's documented in your personal statement, in a buddy letter, and or in a medical record. Okay, because this nexus piece is also crucial. I'm going to show you a hack here in a little bit of how you can get a combined disability benefits questionnaire done by our doctor and a medical nexus letter. Okay, and then the third part there is you've got to have persistent and reoccurring symptoms of PTSD or your mental health condition into the present day. All right, again, that's what we call severity of symptoms. So perhaps you've had trouble holding down jobs, you're having relationship issues, you've been divorced, maybe you've got anger issues, sexual problems, you're delusional, you're afraid to be in crowds, or you don't like to be around loud noises. Trust me when I say this, gang, I get it because I've had all those things. I'm dealing with all of those things now. Okay, so just make sure that when you do go in and you are getting help, you're talking to the psychologist, psychiatrist, make sure you're sharing with them just how bad things are. Don't hold back. And don't be afraid to try some different medications. I've tried, I swear, every medication under the sun with mixed results. Some work better than others. And of course, there's some pretty serious side effects with many of them, especially the SSDI inhibitors, anything that you're taking for depression or anxiety. Okay, but don't be afraid to try medications if you think that they might help. Okay, so in general, there's 3 types of mental health claims that are eligible for compensation under the law. The first is PTSD combat. Okay, so if you've ever looked inside eBenefits and you have PTSD, it'll say there whether it's combat related or whether it's non-combat related or due to MST, military sexual trauma, so assault or harassment. The reason why this matters, of course, is if you're receiving concurrent retirement pay, if something's combat related, you're going to get concurrent pay, meaning there's no offset. So if you think you're eligible for combat related, meaning you've deployed, you've been in a war zone, you've been exposed to death or the threat of death, you should be combat related. And why that matters is the receipt of concurrent pay. Okay. And then the third type is all other mental health conditions. And most veterans have no idea there's 37 possible other mental health conditions, ranging from depression, anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia, tons of different conditions. So don't limit yourself just to post-traumatic stress disorder if you have some other type of condition as well, okay? So evidence requirements, what do you need to have if you're submitting for post-traumatic stress disorder? These are the evidence requirements you're required to have. So the VA calls it an in-service stressor. And what that means is what event or incident caused or made your PTSD worse. Okay, so for example, if you were deployed to Iraq with Operation Iraqi Freedom and you were being constantly bombarded with rockets, indirect mortar fire, perhaps you were out on mission, you were on convoys, it's pretty easy for you to document those in-service stressors and be sure to include the dates if you can, descriptions of geographic locations, the units you were in, as well as the dates that you were there. Now, you don't have to be exact. It asks for days, like the actual date. If you can give a month and time period range, that's okay. Okay. If you're a first-time filer of post-traumatic stress disorder, meaning you've never filed before, you need to fill out what's called the Statement in Support of a Claim for Service Connection for PTSD. All right, you can Google that right now if you want. Statement in Support of a Claim for Service Connection to PTSD. It gives you two in-service stressor options where you can document what's listed there in bullet 2. Now, you have two options to do this. Again, this is only if you're a first-time filer of PTSD, meaning you don't already have a PTSD rating, okay? You can do the paper version, meaning you download the PDF file, you enter your information, you print, sign, scan, and then upload to eBenefits. Or you can just do the online version of this form, the Statement in Support of a Claim for Service Connection for Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder, directly inside eBenefits. You can just enter the information directly on the screen. It'll ask you if you're filing a claim for PTSD. Again, if you're already receiving benefits, it will say you're already receiving benefits for PTSD. We don't need you to fill out this form again. However, you do need to do something else, which I'm about to get to, okay? If you're filing for an increase for PTSD or other mental health conditions, okay? So let's say you're only rated 10% for PTSD and you think you should be 50% or you should be 70%, okay? In that case, what you're gonna need is a disability benefits questionnaire for PTSD, the review document. There's two types. One of them is initial PTSD and one of them is review PTSD, okay? So if you're filing for an increase in your PTSD benefits, you're going to need the DBQ review, okay? If you're a first-time filer for PTSD, you're going to need the initial PTSD. If you're filing for any other mental health condition like depression or anxiety or schizophrenia or bipolarism, you'll need to use the DBQ for other mental health conditions, okay? Now, our doctor, our U.S. board-certified psychologist, who you're free to use, he knows the difference, okay? You'll also need a medical nexus letter. So if you've been out of the service, say for more than a year, and you never were seen while you were on active duty for PTSD or mental health conditions, or never complained that you were having issues, you're going to need a medical nexus letter, okay? And the reason you'll need a nexus letter, all right, is to prove service connection. And again, what do we like? There's 5 statements. You need the statement at least as likely as not due to your military service. Better is more likely than not due to your military service. Now, if you use our doctor, what's cool is you're going to get a combined DBQ and Nexus letter. I'm going to show you my real example so you can see what you're going to get, okay? Again, there's that statement in support of claim for PTSD if you're a first-time filer. However, if you're filing for an increase, I recommend you do a statement in support of a claim, just a generic one for PTSD, okay? I'm going to show you mine on the screen. Remember, guys, it's the VA Form 21-4138. I also recommend you get a buddy letter from a credible first-hand witness, Why? Because buddy letters are lay evidence, which means after the fact evidence in a VA claim. It substitutes and it helps fill gaps as additional medical evidence to help prove and win your mental health or PTSD claim, as well as document the severity of symptoms. Remember now, a buddy letter can be from anyone 18 years of age or older. I highly recommend, though, it's from someone who knows you well, who's seen you directly firsthand. Could be a supervisor at work, could be a coworker with where you work now, it could be someone you served with in the military, whether it was in combat or at home station. Could be your spouse, okay? Could be your husband or your wife. Anyone who can shed light as a firsthand witness on your issues, okay? And again, once you get all this stuff, you're going to actually go and do this directly inside your own eBenefits account, upload this documentation, and submit it to the VA, okay? So let's see some real examples, all right? I'm going to show you my DBQ for PTSD review that got me a 70% rating. I'm also going to show you my statement in support of a claim and a buddy letter, okay? So I'm going to show you that right now on the screen. So the first thing I'm going to show you, hopefully you can see this okay, gang, is the PTSD review DBQ. Now you'll notice this is a little bit different format than if you download the actual standard form online. That's okay. If you use our doctor, this is what you're going to get. And you see here on the title, it says right there, PTSD review DBQ for compensation and pension. If it's an initial, if you've never filed for PTSD before, it's going to say PTSD initial. If you're going for depression, anxiety, or chronic pain syndrome with depression, remember the lifestyle impact claim, this is going to say other mental health conditions, DBQ, okay? So you see it talks about who I am. So this will have your name and information in there. The first section, it's going to talk about, do you or have you ever been diagnosed with PTSD? Yes. What is your diagnosis? Mental health, mental disorder diagnosis 1, PTSD. There's the ICD code. And then mental disorder diagnosis 2. You also see that I put alcohol use disorder in full remission. Okay. So when I got home from Afghanistan, I was drinking a lot, self-medicating, definitely not the right thing to do, but it's something that a lot of veterans do to try to cope with things. He's also going to fill out for you guys any other issues you have going on. You see TBI, ED, plantar fasciitis, shoulder, migraine headaches. It talks about some other issues that you may have, comments, if any. And then this is a crucial one, which I'm going to get to in a minute, and you're going to see why this matters. Occupational and social impairment. This section is the most crucial part of your mental health DBQ, whether it's for PTSD or other mental health conditions. And the reason being is these levels correspond directly to a rating under the law, which I'm going to show you here in a minute. Now, the level that the doctor checked for me was at the 100% level, but I was rated at the 70% level. And the reason being is because the predominance of my symptoms, all right, my level of occupational and social impairment is most closely related with the 70% level, even though the doctor checked the 100% level, okay? And again, this is about a 12 to 13 page report. Talks about some other things here, what records were reviewed, anything else pertinent. You'll see here he's going to ask you all kinds of questions if you talk to him. Relevant social, marital, family history. Talks about, you know, how I was before the military. Why does this matter? Because it helps prove that service connection piece. Occupational and educational history. Relevant mental health history to include medications. Started talking with psychiatrists during deployment. Post was in Boston, transferred to a psychiatrist in Texas. He currently taking venlafaxine and clonazepam. Has been prescribed prazosin, but had very serious negative reactions, and scheduled to start CBT therapy, which I have done as well. That's the combat exposure therapy, CBT. Okay. Talks about some of my legal behavioral history. I'm now divorced, unfortunately. Alcohol use. And so then it jumps into the diagnostic criteria of post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, this is big because if you remember, the criterion for getting combat-related PTSD is exposure to actual or threatened death, serious injury, or sexual violation. And you can see he's checked the boxes to directly experiencing the events, witnessing in person, learning about it. And this is from my combat deployment. Okay, recurrent bad dreams and nightmares, guilt. We lost some troops over there, sleep disturbances, hypervigilance, PTSD. Okay, symptoms: depressed mood, anxiety, suspiciousness, near continuous panic attacks, chronic sleep impairment, memory impairment, okay, obsessive rituals. And then you can see here, when we get down to the bottom, now he didn't do a nexus statement for me in mine because I'm already combat related for PTSD, so this was just a review. But for you, he'll do a medical nexus statement directly inside of your DBQ, helping connect your post-traumatic stress disorder or your mental health conditions to your service. Okay. Next, I'm going to show you my actual statement in support of a claim that I submitted for PTSD. Now, you'll note the structure here. Again, I'm going to upload these in the course so that you guys can download them. So they're right below this module if you want to download it so you can model your statement after this. But I want you to pay attention to a few things. Okay, take a look at the very first section here on the top. Okay, that first section that I want you to be aware of is I'm characterizing what my diagnosis is. Post-traumatic stress disorder caused by my deployment to Afghanistan. And I list the approximate dates. Then I talk about what happened. Exposure to VBIDs, exposure to rockets and mortars, had an RPG explode close to me. And then I start talking about my symptoms. Hypersensitivity to loud noises, constant anxiety, suicidal ideation and thoughts, constant panic attacks, sweating, heart pounding, ringing in my ears, impairment of short-term and long-term memory. And then I talk about what my level of occupational and social impairment is and just how bad things are for me and my PTSD, okay? Printed this out, signed my name and the date. And then I listed some stuff from my deployment journal. You don't have to do this because you're going to have documented inside of your stressor statements what those things are, okay? So again, this was done directly on the VA Form 21-4138, the statement in support of a claim, and what's the structure, what the condition is, how it happened, how it was caused or made worse by my military service, what I was exposed to. Boom. Then I talk about in part 3, my level of occupational and social impairment and how my PTSD is limiting or affecting my life. And then I sign my name, swearing and certifying that the statement is true and correct to the best of my knowledge and belief. Okay? So now I'm going to show you a buddy letter. So this was the buddy letter filled out by a friend of mine who's a coworker who was aware of a lot of the issues that I was dealing with. And she filled this out on my behalf. So she lists here how she knew me. We worked together at the Air Force Personnel Center in San Antonio. She talked about, from the moment she met me, it became evident that I suffered from severe PTSD. She witnessed me get into verbal altercations. She knew that I struggled with depression, anxiety. Sorry about that. She knew that I struggled with depression, anxiety, and panic attacks, insomnia, hallucinations. And so, she would text me to check in on me and, just make sure I was okay. But bottom line here is when you get a buddy letter filled out on your behalf, it needs to be someone who knows you directly and has witnessed you firsthand. All right. She's characterizing who she is. So she's establishing credibility with the VA Raider by writing, hey, she's a lieutenant in the reserves, the Air Force Reserves, and a GS-14 for DHA, writing the statement on behalf of me. Okay, so that'll be you. And then how this person knew me. Hey, we worked together directly. Talked about what she witnessed over time, the struggles I was dealing with, and the symptoms and the outward manifestation of those symptoms in my work, okay, and in my social life, which corresponds to occupational and social impairment. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys this PTSD for DBQ, or DBQ for PTSD, the statement in support of a claim, and then the buddy letter. Okay, so I just wanted you guys to see those, but we're going to jump back into the presentation here and wrap up. Okay. So what are the crucial factors, all right? That service connection piece is a big one. If you've left the service more than a year, you're going to need a nexus statement, because if you don't have one, you're going to get denied service connection. So make sure you get a DBQ and or a medical nexus opinion connecting your PTSD and mental health issues to your military service, all right? Now, there are issues with pre-existing, okay? So if you came into the service and you already had anxiety, but your military service made it worse, just make sure you document that in your statement in support of a claim, and let the VA know what happened and how your anxiety was before versus how it was made worse by your military service. Okay. Again, crucial factors. Do you have a medical diagnosis for PTSD and mental health conditions? If the answer is no, you go get one first. Do not file a claim until you have a medical diagnosis from a doctor, okay, a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And are you actively seeking treatment? The reason I recommend you actively seek treatment is twofold. The first and the most important is I want you guys, as my fellow veterans, to get the help you need, whether it's at vet centers in the VA, whether you've started therapy, or taking medication. I think it's important that you try to stabilize yourself in as much as you can, okay? So that's the first part. The second part to that is you're documenting every single time you go in, whether it's to a vet center, you're seeing a psychologist, psychiatrist, a social worker, taking medications, you're communicating with these doctors via My Healthy Vet, all right, via the secure messaging system there. You're showing that you're actively seeking help over time. And the reason why this is important is because the VA, it will ensure that they'll never lower your rating, okay? Because you're communicating and you're actively seeking treatment, you're getting help. They know you're serious about it. It shows in good faith that you're trying, even though it may not be helping, okay? And it's documenting the record every time you go in. So if you have a rating now, but you're not going in and getting help, call the VA mental health line in your area and make an appointment and go in and get stuff documented and keep going and getting it documented over time, okay? And do you take medications? And do the medications help? That's a crucial factor, okay? And then bottom line is, what is the level of occupational and social impairment, okay? How is PTSD or the mental health conditions limiting or affecting your life, okay? All right, I want to show you this again. You've probably seen this before. If not, this is the snapshot of the mental health symptoms taken directly out of ECFR, Title 38, Part 4, the Schedule for Rating Disabilities. Now, I know this is a bit of an eye chart, but I wanted to include this because I think it's so crucial for you guys to understand the mental health symptoms there in that first column, and then the corresponding rating. So remember I showed you on my DBQ that the doctor had checked total occupational and social impairment? So you look at that and you might go, well, man, you should have got 100%. It's not quite that simple. And the reason why it's not quite that simple and why these don't tie directly to one another is because the VA rater is going to use what's called the preponderance of the symptoms. So for example, for me, most of my symptoms were at the 70% level. All right, deficiencies in most areas: work, school, relations, judgment. I've had a divorce in there. I've had trouble at work. I've got near continuous panic. So my symptoms are at the 70% level, even though the doctor checked the total level, which you might think would be the 100%. Okay, but I want you to notice this chart, because when you're writing your personal statements, all right, when you're getting a buddy letter or when you're going to the doctor or your C&P exam, you need to know what the symptoms and the keywords are associated with the various ratings. Okay, so take a look at say the 10% level. So I'm at that second one from the bottom now. Occupational and social impairment due to mild or transient symptoms which decrease work efficiency and ability to perform occupational tasks only during periods of significant stress, or symptoms are controlled by continuous medication. All right, so if you put in your personal statement that I have PTSD, but I take medications and now I don't have any symptoms because the medications help, you're probably going to get rated 10%. Okay, versus if you take medications and you're having very serious side effects and maybe they're not helping, you need to write that down. I take medication, but they don't help. Okay, and then take a look at the 50% level, all right, in the middle. Occupational and social impairment with reduced reliability and productivity. Okay, panic attacks more than once a week, impairment of short-term and long-term memory, impaired judgment, impaired abstract thinking, disturbances of mood and motivation, difficulty in establishing and maintaining effective work and social relationships. Okay, so again, if I'm writing my statement in support of a claim and I think I should be at the 50% level, I'm going to write, hey, my symptoms are now I'm having panic attacks 3 times a week. I'm having trouble at work. I'm forgetting things. I'm having to write everything down. If I don't write it down, I forget it. Hey, I'm gambling more than I was before. I just bought a brand new vehicle that I can't afford. I'm having trouble. I just got divorced. I don't have any friends anymore. Okay, whatever the symptoms are, you need to be using the keywords in your personal statements tied directly to the rating that you think you should have. Okay, that's a crucial point. And that's why I show you this chart. Okay, gang? All right, so the mental health claims process, you're going to do your mental health claim inside of eBenefits. You're going to submit it. The VA is then going to get it, and they're going to review the evidence. You may or may not need a C&P exam for PTSD or other mental health conditions. We've seen some veterans that have used our doctor, our DBQ, and the Nexus statement, and you haven't needed a C&P exam because the VA has determined, hey, we have all the competent and adequate medical evidence we need to make a decision. So sometimes you may get lucky and not need a C&P exam, but most of you are going to need one. And after the C&P exam, those results then go forward directly to the VA. They're going to review and analyze that information, and eventually they're going to make a rating decision. All right, remember, what kind of claim are we submitting? A standard claim or a fully developed claim? Fully developed claim, right? That means you're submitting and uploading all the evidence to the VA that they need to make the rating decision. All right, so what the heck should you do now? Get an independent psych eval. All right, if you want, you can get the DBQ from our doctor. You can get the disability benefits questionnaire review of PTSD, initial PTSD, or other mental health conditions from our doctor. Just email us, support@vaclaimsinsider.com. Let us know what you need. And another key point here is don't limit yourself to just one diagnosis. So perhaps in one of these next modules here, I talk about the lifestyle impact claim. Maybe you have a secondary mental health claim that has been caused or made worse by your other primary service-connected disabilities. So don't just limit yourself if you have other issues going on in addition to PTSD. But a quick note here, regardless of how many mental health conditions you have, the VA is only going to rate one of them, okay? So for example, you're not going to have a 50% rating for PTSD and a 30% rating for depression. Okay, they're only going to rate one of them, and they'll grant you the higher rating one. Okay, but don't limit yourself to just one diagnosis. If you've got other issues going on, file both or multiple and let the VA decide. Okay, so again, you're a VA Claims Insider Mastery member. You're a member of the VA Claims Insider family. If you need an independent psych eval, if you need the disability benefits questionnaire done, and you need a Nexus statement, email us, support@vaclaimsinsider.com, and we'll help you get hooked up with our U.S. board certified psychologist who will get that report done, just like I showed you in mine on the screen. Get that to you so that you can upload that into eBenefits and submit it with your claim, okay? C&P exam prep for PTSD. Okay, these are some tips that I want you guys to know. Is you've got to know what's in your medical record, bottom line. Make sure you review the disability benefits questionnaire for PTSD, whatever the doctor did for you. Pay very close attention to the symptoms, the keywords, and your diagnosis. Take a look at the law. I showed you that chart a couple slides back on the keywords and the symptoms that correspond to the rating. Bottom line here is you cannot have your best day. You need to present yourself and how you are on your very worst days, okay? And be uncomfortably vulnerable. What I tell vets is if it's uncomfortable for you to say, to talk about, you're on the right track. So if you're having sexual problems, if you've been in fights, you've had verbal arguments and altercations at work, maybe the police has been called to your home for domestic issues, okay? Those are uncomfortable things to talk about, but they need to come out at your C&P exam, okay? No substitute for knowing your story cold, last line, as well as the in-service stressors that caused or made your PTSD or mental health claims worse. And don't forget, gang, the C&P examiner is going to have already seen your information. They're going to have seen your claim. They're going to know your current rating. They're going to have seen your evidence already. So don't let them trick you into believing that they don't know what the documentation says, because they do. So make sure that you're being clear and concise with your own story and that you're telling the truth about what's in your record. If you want, I've had some vets ask, hey, can I print out my DBQ for PTSD? Can I bring my statement in with me to my C&P exam? The answer is absolutely. Just be careful how you present that. Don't make it seem like, you're a professional claimant and you're going for a certain rating and, here, doc, here's everything you need to make your decision. Just be a little bit lighter and looser than that. Bring it with you. Tell them you brought it because it helps you remember some of the things because you're having memory issues, and offer it up to them. Hey, sir or ma'am, hey, doc, I did get a disability benefits questionnaire review done. Would you like to see it? I have it here. And if the answer is yes, you can present it at that time. Okay? Thanks for your service, gang. God bless you and your family. Again, mental health conditions, I deal with it myself, so I'm very sensitive to it. A lot of veterans have PTSD or other mental health issues, so I get it. It sucks, but bottom line is if you have these types of issues going on, you should at least get the rating and compensation you deserve, okay? Hope this was helpful, gang. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you real soon.